Happy Sunday, Tampa Bay. We're with you for another week here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, like we are every Sunday for more than a decade, talking about what is going on in the Tampa Bay real estate market. Andrew Duncan with the Duncan Duo team at LPT Realty. Want to thank everyone for coming out back a couple weeks ago for our appreciation party. If you came to the event and you want one of your photos from the event, you can get those on our social media channels, Facebook. You can DM us. I believe we posted the album on our Facebook, which is the Duncan Duo team. Feel free to jump on there and grab any of the photos that you took, and would love the opportunity to share that with you. You can, if you're following us on Instagram or at the Duncan Duo, pretty much in every social channel. I know we posted the folder on Facebook, but you may need to DM us on another platform, and we can make sure to send you the link. So when we aren't on air again, at the Duncan Duo and all the social channels, if you're curious about your home's value, you want an instant cash offer, you're frustrated, you're ready to move on. We're seeing that a lot right now. We're experiencing a lot of sellers that put their home on the market probably after the storms. They looked at pre-storm comps to use to figure out the value. Not realizing that post-storm, a lot of stuff was going to change. Maybe not the right marketing, maybe not the right agent, and now some of those agreements are expiring. Sellers are starting to wise up. Maybe they picked the wrong agent. Maybe they overpriced the house to begin with. So we're seeing that over and over and over again. Unfortunately, a lot of customers picking the agent that tells them the highest price and the lowest commission, and most of the time those agents are lying to you. Simply because they want a listing and a sign in the yard, and they're going to try and work you down on price, and they weren't honest with you from the beginning. And the downside of that strategy is that you lose the biggest competitive advantage that you have as a home seller is when you first go on the market. If you don't go on the market initially with great price, great marketing, great agent, correcting it becomes problematic, and you end up losing more money because you have to cut the price and then you're chasing the market down. But unfortunately, too many sellers got used to the boom COVID market and prices always rising and just the assumption that they're always rising, and used bad comps, used bad judgment, picked the agent that lied to them, and now those homes are coming off the market, expiring, and we're getting calls every single day at our office with upset home sellers whose home didn't sell because they picked the wrong agent, or truthfully because maybe they didn't listen to the right agent about price and then hired the wrong agent who lied to them about price. So unfortunately, it does happen, and I'm going to talk about the stats next because I want you to understand that when I'm talking about this, the data backs it up. Okay, so I look at the real estate statistics every single month. I look at what's going on in my market, in my business, and I look at what's going on nationally and for trends. And then, of course, in the Tampa Bay market. And, when I talk about the Tampa Bay market, I'm talking mostly Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco. We obviously serve Sarasota and Manatee. I've done complete segments on this show before about how drastically different the Sarasota Manatee market is from the core Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater market, simply because of seasonality, the demographics, and just, norms and traditions. The markets just are much different than each other. So I'm going to talk today. Some of the things translate, some of the things happening here happen there, and vice versa. But then there are a lot of times where it's not necessarily translating. So let's talk about the stats here in Tampa Bay. There were 4,731 sales in March of 2025, and the stats usually come out about the middle of the month following. And it's important for you to understand the timeline of how real estate statistics come out. Real estate agents are able to look at this data on a monthly basis and, frankly, even on a daily and weekly basis to keep the pulse of what's going on. Obviously, not all agents do that because a lot of agents are too busy wearing too many hats to be able to stay on top of the data. Fortunately, as someone who's got a person with 40-something people on my team and a lot of leverage, I look at this stuff very regularly so that our agents can keep giving our clients the best advice possible. So anyway, March of 25, 4,730 sales. March of 24, 4,974 sales. March of 23, 5,506. Okay. March of 22, 6,000 6,048. So do you see the trend? 6,048 down every year all the way to 4,730. So that is about a 35% drop in the number of transactions from 2022 to today. So what does that mean? That means less demand, more homes on the market, less appreciation. It's just not as strong of a market. And we're off even from last year, which was not a good year. We're off from last year 5% or so in terms of the year over year change in the number of home sales. Now, fortunately, February, again, February showed the same thing. January showed the same thing. So we're seeing fewer home sales so far this year than we saw last year. Now let's talk about price. Okay, this is pricing, and this translates pretty well across most neighborhoods. Not all price points, not all neighborhoods, but most neighborhoods. Last year, in March, the average sale price was $480,292. This year in March, it's $469,792. Okay, couple percentage point depreciation, values dropping. Okay, we are not seeing appreciation in our market. We're seeing the opposite of that. And in fact, if you look at the trend from August of last year, or even we'll start with June. June of last year, our average sale price was $507 pre-storm, right? $507 was our average. Now it's down to $469. Okay, so again, you're seeing home values diminish here. So if you're going to look at comps that sold a few months ago and price your home higher than them, your home is not going to sell. You have to price your home lower than the comps that sold a few months ago because prices are dropping, and they have been for a while. If you go back to let's go back to August of 23, average sale price $487. Okay, so again, from August of 23 to today, prices have been dropping. Okay. Now, are we seeing the Great Recession type price drops? No, this is more of a stabilization, a smaller drop. But the idea that you're going to be able to price your home higher than the last sales in a market where prices are dropping is wrong. You actually have to get ahead of that. You have to get ahead of the downward trend on prices. So if we expect to see another few percentage points drop throughout this year, if you're going to sell your home, you've got to look at that and say, okay, I don't need to be priced at what my home is worth now. I need to be priced at what it's going to be worth in 30, 60, 90 days. When we find a buyer, we get to closing and we go through appraisal. The buyer still needs to see that it's a good enough value. So if you've got a home that you think is worth $460 or $470 today, you probably need to price it at $450 because that's what it's going to be worth when the buyer shows up because home values are dropping. Back to so continuing the conversation on that, and again, it's just the reality of a market that got hit with storms, that has high interest rates, and that has some tariff challenges. I will say that I think that that we are going to continue to see that for a few months. I think there's a chance that later this year appreciation shows up if we get some interest rate relief or property tax relief. And of course, the roller coaster that is Washington right now, and the tariffs on and tariffs off and the stock market up and the stock market down, that causes fear. And what happens when you have fear? A lot of home buyers want a deal. If they're gonna buy during a time where a lot of people are sitting on the fence, the buyers are gonna buy, know they have the leverage. Okay, so let's talk about that leverage a little bit. 73 days on market, okay, is the average length of time it's taking to sell a home. That is the longest. That's the longest time it's taking to sell a home that I can remember. And I've been a real estate agent for a long time, 20 years. I believe it was probably worse than that during the Great Recession during times, but 73 is definitely, a decade low for number of days it's taking to sell. The list to sell price ratio this year has hovered between 96 and 97%. So if a home is asking, a certain number, the buyer has some leverage for a few percentage points. Again, assuming that the asking price is accurate and based on market trends. Homes are selling for a few percentage points off of asking. Now, convert this back to March of 22, we saw 102%. Okay, so there's been a 5% swing from sellers to buyers in terms of negotiating leverage to get a discount off the asking price. In 22, Sellers were in a very advantageous position. We had less than a month of inventory. Everything was a bidding war, and homes were selling substantially above asking price, giving the seller massive leverage. Today, that leverage has obviously flipped on the head and gone to the buyer now. Now buyers there's been a 5% swing. So buyers have the advantage to be able to get a better deal compared to the seller in terms of asking price. Number of homes on the market, 20,452, also a decade high number of homes that are on the market. We did see a drop in month supply of inventory. We've been hovering around 5 and 6, but because home sales did pick up from February to March, which is seasonal and typical, not something to celebrate. Unfortunately, home sales every single year increase from February to March. And, we didn't really see, any kind of big swing. In fact, the swing from February to March is usually more substantial than what we're feeling this year. So 4.32 months of inventory, that is still, historically speaking, not a horrible number. We're not loaded with foreclosures. During the Great Recession, we had 20 months of inventory. So we had way more homes going to foreclosure, which we're not going to see. We had way more homes on the market than this. But again, we have seen the diminished strength of our market lead to more homes on the market, homes taking longer to sell, and buyers being in a more advantageous position. We did have 6 months of inventory just a couple months ago. So again, all of those things point towards sellers needing to be aggressive with the price and buyers be willing to ask for what you want. Negotiate, make your offer. 3 years ago, you may have worked with an agent that tried to deter you from making an offer because it'd never have a chance of getting accepted below the asking price or 5% off the asking price. Today, that's not the case. Make the offer, and you'd be surprised at how often you may get it accepted. And sellers just need to be realistic. You need to price aggressively from the start. Otherwise, you're going to keep owning your home. You're going to keep being the high bidder for your home. The value is going to drop even more. And every time you drop the price, you're simply trying to catch up with the market, and you're not catching it because you were behind from the jump. So that's pretty much the take on what's going on in the real estate statistics and what is going on in Tampa Bay. I'm going to continue this conversation. I'm going to talk about what things could happen to prompt a recovery in our real estate market in the second half of the year after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So what could happen in terms of the real estate market if we get some property tax relief, or if we get some interest rate drops, or if we get Washington to get some consistency and stabilization in the tariff war so that the stock market isn't rising and falling? I'm Andrew Duncan with the Duncan Duo team at LPT Realty, and I look at the statistics every single month to analyze what's going on in our market. We have a lot of things that are holding our market back right now and keeping it slower than we would like it to be. Fewer home sales, lower prices, homes taking longer to sell. All of those things are the result of high interest rates. The storms that hit here in the third and fourth quarter of last year, and the economic policies presently happening in Washington and Wall Street. So the long-term benefits of a lot of the trade things I certainly do see. I believe that there is a lot of good to be had from what is being done. However, the inconsistency of the messaging, the up and the down, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that causes the fluctuations in the stock market, causes fear from people. It causes people to sit on the sidelines. Buying a home for people is a very emotional process. So what is happening with the tariff stuff is certainly holding our real estate market back and causing fear. Interest rates being high, even though we've got some relief here and there, and they've ebbed and flowed, they're hovering in the high 6s, low 7s, and that's still high compared to what we had a few years ago when we saw stuff in the 3 and 4s. It may be a long time before we ever see 3 and 4% interest rates, but if we can start to see, high 5s, mid 5s, high 4s over the next few years, that is when economists and a lot of real estate experienced analysts believe we'll see a swing back in our real estate market, where we start seeing appreciation, increase in home sales, and all of the things, all the relief that is holding our market back. So it's high interest rates, It's the up and down of the tariff market. It's the storms. And the last wild card, and this is something I've teased on the show before. A couple months ago, Governor DeSantis tweeted on X, or he X'd on X. I don't really know how to say it. I'm just going to say he tweeted on X that he wanted to abolish property taxes in Florida. Now, if property taxes get abolished in Florida and they move the burden of cost to other things, sales tax, tourism tax, other types of taxes to make up for that revenue, we will definitely see a massive pop in our real estate market in terms of values, in terms of demand, in terms of people moving here, because property taxes are much more substantial than insurance costs. And there are a lot of people that aren't buying or moving because of how high our insurance costs have gone. And secondly, I did the math on this for the average home, for the most expensive home, all the way down to the entry-level starter homes. And an elimination of property taxes would be comparable to payments for home buyers going back to what they were when we saw the record low interest rates during COVID. If we were in our state to abolish property taxes, we would see a massive influx of buyers able to qualify, a massive influx of people wanting to move here because they're tired of paying property taxes wherever they are. We would see a very quick turnaround, appreciation, increased home sales, and we would be back to seeing bidding wars, homes above asking, all that kind of stuff. Now, whether or not that happens, it's hard to predict. There are politicians I've spoken to that believe that some version of that has a chance at hitting the ballot box and it needs a 60% vote by the public. Well, if we know that 50% of people are homeowners, the likelihood is that the majority of those are going to vote in favor of not having to pay more money. Some of them won't, but certainly the majority of those. And then, of course, there's enough people involved in construction, real estate, and mortgages that know that that would have a positive impact on their income. I think there's a reasonably good chance that it passes. Now, whether or not, local governments can survive if that happens is another question. So I think there'll be some sort of jockeying back and forth, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something on, the voter record, an amendment to our Constitution that goes something along the lines of, maybe for homestead people only, maybe not for institutional investors, maybe not for people above a certain price point, maybe not for commercial properties. And either way, something as massive as that would still have a hugely positive impact on our market. Now, if they just give, $500 off or $1,000 off, I'm sure a lot of homeowners are going to appreciate saving some money on their property taxes. But in order to have the swing back in our market, and who knows whether that is warranted or whether, our local senators, congressmen, and governor want that, who knows? But there is at least some momentum to believe that could happen. So there are people speculating, and investors and hedge funds starting to look very advantageously at Tampa Bay again to try and get ahead of that. Because, of course, if that happens, prices are going to spike again. So there are people, smart analysts, smart money, jumping in now saying we want to get in now because the buying opportunity is great. We can get a good deal because we think there's a good chance of this happening a year down the line. So that happens and our market is going to see a surge. If that doesn't happen, I still think we're going to see a reasonably decent recovery later in the year, assuming no major storms, simply because more of the flooded houses get cleaned out, more people move in, more people move out, and and kind of the top of mind awareness of those storms starts to wear off. And then, of course, hopefully the tariff battles stabilize and the stock market stabilizes some. And then last but not least, we get some interest rate relief. So all those things happen, and we should see some positive signs of, improvements in our real estate market later in the year. Of course, the more that the abolishment of property taxes, the more momentum it gets, the greater the chance for a massive upward swing in real estate values in Tampa Bay. So hopefully that helps you understand what I see coming to real estate in Tampa Bay. And we're going to be back, continue this conversation after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market, and I want to talk about smart home technology for a little bit. Andrew Duncan with the Duncan Duo team at LPT Realty. Obviously, you'd have to be sitting under a rock to not be paying attention to some of the developments when it comes to AI and robotics and smart home technology and some of the trends that are happening. But I think a lot of customers don't think about this, or they get set in their ways and they forget. So first and foremost, if you're a real estate agent, home buyer, or home seller, I want you to understand that there are cameras everywhere. Everywhere. Just expect that everything is being recorded. All of your actions are being recorded. I've seen so many videos and audio recordings. And again, the audio recordings in some ways could be interpreted as illegal. There's a lot of case law, and I'm not a lawyer, so seek legal advice. Every state's a little bit different. But I've seen videos recently where consumers that are thinking about offering on a house, and they're talking about it in the front yard, and people are listening in on their Ring camera and recording it, right? So in Florida, you're supposed to have consent or knowledge. You're supposed to be known that you're recording, but nonetheless, a lot of the stuff I'm seeing isn't necessarily Florida. My point is that everyone's recording everything. If you want to have a conversation with your real estate agent about what you're going to offer on a house and you don't want to tip your negotiating hand, maybe don't have the conversation in the house. Maybe wait until you have a phone conversation with the real estate agent later. The win in negotiations sometimes can not happen when you tip your hand to the other side, when you let them know what you're thinking about doing, when you let them know what your bottom line is. One of the videos I saw recently, and again, this wasn't Florida, but this does happen everywhere. It is very common. There are cameras everywhere. If you're looking at houses, if you're selling your house, if you're buying a house, if you're a real estate agent, there are cameras and recording devices so easily available today and so inexpensive. They are everywhere. In fact, in my own neighborhood, I have a lot of cameras. I see things regularly that people do when they're walking around a neighborhood or even on my own property. And I just sometimes laugh because I'm like, do they not realize that they're on camera? Or do they just not care? The reality is, though, that everything is happening on camera today. So please be cautious. Please pay attention. Please don't tip your hand on negotiation. Also, your feedback about a house. Sometimes you might say things about a house. I believe in the golden rule. If you don't like a house and you want to make fun of it, probably don't do it while you're in the house. Because you may offend somebody. You may end up getting retribution or some sort of response from that person. So my recommendation is if you're in a house and you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. Wait till you leave if you really want to hate on the house. If you want to negotiate on the house, wait till you leave. If you want to, put your feet up and watch TV, wait till you get to your house. I see that often too, where real estate agents are doing an open house and they're popping open a beer and watching football and, just basically cozying up on the couch. And be respectful of people's property. They're always watching. Next thing about smart home technology, and I think this is it's something that, I mentioned to a friend, yesterday. I was meeting a friend of mine to take a look at a house and had to scan into the lockbox. And, interestingly enough, with the way technology is moving, I'll be highly surprised if we're still using lock boxes in 5 years. I think every home is going to have a scannability to be able to open. It's going to get so inexpensive and so common that lock boxes will almost be ineffective and not even used. You'll just simply walk up. You'll have some sort of code on your phone. You'll hold it up, and if you're a real estate agent, you'll have some app. That app will connect with the smart lock at the house. The house will open. And you'll be good to go. Other smart home features, smart refrigerators, obviously alarms, cameras, waterfalls, the technology, the speakers, the sound, cooking, you name it, it's coming. And I think on top of that, and even further from that, robotics. It is not going to be long before the majority of homes have some sort of robotic things. And in reality, a lot of people already have them. They're Roombas. They're smart vacuums. Okay. They're automated little mini robots that vacuum your house. So many of those things are going to continue to develop with technology, with how fast AI is moving, that smart home technology in 5 years from now is going to be completely different than what it is today. So be prepared for it. But the bottom line, if you're in a house, showing a house, seeing a house, understand you're on camera. Okay. You're on camera everywhere. I mean, even the number of homes that have cameras today, if you see not just homes, the number of cars that have cameras today, if you see the controversy and humor of the people that are vandalizing Teslas and how many of them are caught on camera just being idiots because they don't realize that cameras are everywhere. Again, be smart about it. Be respectful. So you're listening to the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show when we aren't on air at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. Make sure that you also go to DuncanDuo.com if you're thinking about selling your home. If you want an instant cash offer, if you're frustrated because your home didn't sell and you didn't have a great agent, or you overpriced it, or didn't get the right marketing, or had bad photos, we specialize in helping people whose homes didn't sell. It's common right now, more common than it's been in a long time because there's more homes on the market. Homes are taking longer to sell than they have in a long time. And our market just hasn't really started recovering yet from post-storms. We've seen activity, but not as much as we saw, last year. So I think that there are a lot of consumers out there frustrated. So what I want to talk about next are some tips and some things you can do if your home failed to sell, is failing to sell, if you haven't been able to get a buyer for your house. I want to give you some tips that you can do to try and refresh the marketing and get more attention. First and foremost, the price of the home. If it's properly marketed and has a good agent and it's not getting traction, and when I say properly marketed, I mean there's good photos, it's got a nice description, it's on the major real estate websites, it's well syndicated. If those things are happening and you're not getting offers on your house is overpriced. It's just the reality of it. People have access to so much information today. They're using different websites to search. They're setting up all these different things. And if your home is relatively well marketed and it's not getting an offer at all, it's overpriced. If it's getting offers lower than, massively lower than asking price, it's overpriced. The market is rejecting your house. The market is saying, we're not willing, based on these conditions, to bring you an offer. The market is rejecting your house. That's pretty much the reality of it. So if your home hasn't sold, I would caution you to really get serious about your price. Look at the statistics, look at what's going on in your neighborhood, and get to your real number. Stop fantasy land. Stop paying attention to what your neighbor's home sold for in 22 or 23. That's over. That was fantasy land. That was sunshine and rainbows and tilt-a-whirls. That was fantasy land. Okay, get past fantasy land. What is happening right now in the market? How many homes are you competing with? How many homes are priced better than your home that are comparable? If your home isn't moving, it's probably overpriced. Second thing, the photos. Even something as subtle as swapping up the order of the photos can be effective. Consumers that have clicked through and looked at houses, they've already seen it. They've clicked next. Something didn't capture them. We will regularly swap out the first photo on a listing if we're not getting the attention we think we should, simply because then it's almost refreshes the property in the mind of the consumer. Maybe they don't remember it the same, and we get them to click through and they look at the photos and they're like, oh, it has all these great features. So the reality is that swapping out the photos and changing the order, it can be effective. And then, of course, shooting all new photos, adding new angles, adding drone shots. Those can all be effective. Increasing the marketing, more video interaction, more ad campaigns. These are things that we do when our homes aren't selling for one reason or another. We obviously talk to the client about price to try and get it in line with the right price. But certainly because the market changes, right? We can have an opinion of price today, and 2 weeks later, people in our neighborhood could go under foreclosure or can undercut our price, and the market has changed. You don't live in a vacuum. No matter what your real estate agent told you at the beginning, maybe they were honest with you about price, but then a couple of people in your neighborhood came in and undercut you. So you've got to constantly be looking at your price and be willing to adjust it to get to your next step. And it's really all relative. I hear sellers all the time saying, well, I'm not going to sell until I can get 500. And it looks like all I can get right now is 450. And then I'm going to go out and buy a 700. Well, what do you think is going to happen to the 700? Do you think it's going to sit in a vacuum? Think it's not going to go up too? If your 450 goes up to 500, your 700 is going to go up higher. You're not gaining money from that. It's a stupid financial decision. Okay. You're losing because the home you're going to buy is going to go up too. Okay. So price, super important today. Next thing, obviously changing agents, a different strategy, a different approach, can certainly help get more action on your home. Improvements to your home. Okay. Maybe your home doesn't show well. Maybe it's got bad curb appeal. Maybe you don't have the upgrades that some of your neighbors have. Maybe there's some things that you can do inexpensively. You can pressure wash it. Maybe you can paint this door or that door. Maybe you can fix some of the cosmetic things that are potentially turning consumers off economically. A lot of times our advice to customers isn't massive expense. It's subtle things that can change to make a property look refreshed or more move-in ready. Another thing you can do, and I think this one gets missed a lot. The condition of the home obviously matters. The price of the home matters. But one other thing that you can do is come off the market to go back on. Okay. If you've made a mistake on pricing, if you've hired the wrong agent, if you've not put your home in the right condition, and you decide to do that after the home's been on the market a while, unfortunately, your best opportunity to get the home moved was when it was first listed. That's when it's new. That's when people's vanity is highest because they think, oh, everyone wants it because it's brand new. And by the time it's been on the market a few months, consumers look at that as like a scarlet letter. They look at it and say, what's wrong with it that everyone else is passing on it? So if you have to do things to correct either your price, your condition, your features, your curb appeal, even your agent, and that doesn't necessarily always mean changing brokerages. Sometimes a brokerage can assign you to a new agent. We sometimes do that as well with different strategies. But if you have to come off for a little bit, couple of months, go back on as a fresh new listing with all of those improvements and changes made. Because if you make them after you've been on the market for a while, you're not going to get enough eyes on your property and you're going to miss the mark. Sometimes you might still sell, but there are a lot of eyes not on you once you've hit that 100 days on market. And so hopefully those things help you get your home sold. We're always helping customers whose homes failed to sell with other agents, DuncanDuo.com. Again, that's DuncanDuo.com. And I'm going to be back wrapping up the last segment here on WFLA News. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market when we aren't on air at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. I'm Andrew Duncan, the Duncan Duo team, LPT Realty. Talked in some prior segments about my expectations of what's going to happen with our market, some tips for home sellers whose homes have failed to sell, as well as some updates on the statistics for the Tampa Bay real estate market. What I want to talk about next, student loan woes. It came out this past week that now the federal government is going to start pursuing for student loan delinquency and missed student loan payments, even going as far as hitting credit, garnishing wages, and collecting on past due student loans. There's been kind of a pause on that for a while, and there are a lot of home buyers out there now that probably need to get current. So if you're thinking about buying a home, the very first thing that you need to do before you even go out and look at a house, okay? I've seen consumers do this. They are excited. They tell their significant other, we're going to go look at houses. They all get excited. They go out, they look at homes. They think they can afford something. They fall in love. They're ready to move their family in. They're visualizing all these things, and they find out that there's problems with their credit. They can't buy, and it is the absolute worst letdown. Imagine your spouse getting so excited to move into a place and then finding out that you can't. So before you go through that process, okay, far too many people put the cart before the horse and think they know better. Have a mortgage lender run an approval for you. Have them check your credit. Have them figure out, are your student loans showing up? Do they show delinquent? Have you not had to make a payment in them in a while because there were chances or rumors or thoughts that they were going to get, canceled? You were going to get relief from it. So all these changes obviously can derail some home buyers. So I think it's important. You run your credit, you figure out where your student loan process is. You can go to studentaid.gov to view your payment history and find information on your student loan servicer. A lot changed during the pandemic, and there was a period of time where a lot of people were just like, oh, it looks like I don't have to pay it anymore. It's not reporting at credit bureaus. Doesn't show up. I'm not getting hassled. It's probably going to just go away. And then they bury their head in the sand. They stop paying it. They go buy a TV, and they go do other things. But guess what? You still got to pay it. Unless there's some sort of change from a government perspective, it looks like they're going to start pursuing it more aggressively. So if you are a home buyer and you want to know if you can qualify and you want to know what's showing up on your credit, you need to run your credit. It could slash your credit score by 150 plus points. It could completely eliminate your ability to buy. So you may need to, get your payments current. You may need to sell a car. You may need to reduce your lifestyle, stop going to start. You may have to do something so it doesn't derail your home buying plans. Debt consolidation is one. There are a lot of variables that you can look at, but that was a thing that got thrown into the wrench this week that's going to cause some obstacles for people. So if you're one of those people, before you get out to look at houses, run your credit. And it isn't just about student loans. They're the most recent one and probably a major impact because there's billions of dollars, that are out there, and there's, of a massive amount of consumers that it's going to impact. But checking credit lets you know if there are other things wrong. Just recently my daughter found out that there was a $10 copay from a medical provider that ended up in collections. They spent more money sending mail and hiring a collection agency than the $10 is worth. But nonetheless, that would harm her credit if she didn't take care of it. So it's important for you to look at your credit. And if you're serious about buying a home, there's nothing wrong with having a lender run your credit. You might lose a couple of points in your credit score, but what is more important for your credit than buying a house? Nothing. Okay? People get excited about, their Experian app, and I've got this score and I've got that score and I don't want it to drop. Well, what do you get from a high credit score? You don't get to walk in somewhere and be like, hey, I got high credit. Give me a trophy. You don't get any awards for it. It's the score that's used for you to be able to qualify for credit, to be able to save money. The better your score, the lower your rate. Well, where does your rate matter more than buying a house? So if you're thinking about buying a house, have a mortgage lender run it, and then figure out what you need to do, what you need to fix, what you need to repair, what you need to challenge, because there's mistakes, very common mistakes, or what you need to move around. Do you need to move, money from one creditor to another? Do you need to get a credit line increase? Do you need to pay off a car that you have enough money to pay it off? Do you need to catch up your student loan payments? Okay, all of those things matter when you're buying real estate, and far too many people put the cart before the horse. They go out and they look at houses, and then they get themselves in trouble. They look at homes they can't afford. They look at homes they can't qualify. And then they find out the stuff that's wrong with their credit that may take months to resolve. So hopefully that's not you. Again, when we aren't on air at the Duncan Duo, all of the social media channels, follow our team online. Thanks for coming out to our appreciation event. And if you are thinking about selling your home, just hit up DuncanDuo.com. We'll get you a free home value estimate. We will keep you updated on what your home could get in a cash offer situation. We'll put a plan in place. And you know what? We're not right for every home seller. We just had a home seller not long ago that was, that met with us as a complete jerk. And we said, look, we're not a match for you, okay? So we want to work with people that want to work with us. We want to help them accomplish their goals. We want to be honest with them. That same customer did not want to agree with our price, put their price $250,000 higher than what we recommended. And since then, for the 100-plus days that it's been on the market, they've continued to cut the price and cut the price and cut the price and cut the price, and the home isn't going to sell. It's not going to sell because they didn't want to listen to reality. The reality is price is everything today. You've got to aggressively price your home to move it in today's market. And if you want that aggressive representation, that's us for you. So DuncanDuo.com, and have an awesome rest of your weekend, Tampa Bay.